Joining me now, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor. She traveled to China and North Korea with the president as his press secretary. Sarah, good to have you here tonight. First things first, what's your reaction to the Eric Swalwell story? He was obviously a very outspoken critic of what he saw as a deep and tangled web of Russia collusion within the Trump campaign. He talked about it all the time.
Well, it sounds like Eric should have been paying a lot closer attention to his own foreign dealings than attacking the president so much about Russia. It was outrageous and irresponsible the way that he conducted himself in the attacks that he made against President Trump. But knowing what we know now, it's even more absurd and ridiculous that he was so willing to do that when he had his own situation. And I certainly think it deserves to be checked into and looked into deeper. I commend Kevin McCarthy for his leadership on pushing back and asking that we look at whether or not he should even be on the committee looking into this, particularly with his own association.
Yeah, Lance Gooden, a Republican congressman from Texas, says Chinese nationals should not be allowed to intern in the United States Congress. The CCP is our greatest threat. We can't allow them to infiltrate the offices of our legislators. I'll be introducing a bill to ban this shortly. Do you agree?
I haven't seen that legislation certainly before I would weigh in on anything like that. But I do think we have to really aggressively lean on the intel community and whether or not this is something we can do a lot more on. Look, one thing is extremely clear. Either the United States or China will lead in the 21st century. They are our #1 national security threat and our biggest economic competitor. President Trump was right to hold a hard line against them. He was the first politician in decades to stand up, stop appeasing China, and say enough is enough. Yeah. Joe Biden has proved he is weak on that, and now we find out information that you started your show with, that Hunter Biden is being investigated in his dealings with China by the Justice Department, which I think also proves to be very problematic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the China link that's the most concerning in that whole story. And we now know that that investigation has been going on for some time. It was covert during the election and now is over, which means that Hunter Biden is now clearly aware of that investigation. With regard to, your travels and your work on those trips to China, to North Korea, which are obviously very linked, and your thoughts on the person who should be the ambassador to China. It was John Huntsman during the Trump administration, the former governor of Utah, who had a lot of extensive international experience as well. What about Pete Buttigieg in that role?
I'm more qualified, infinitely more qualified than Mayor Pete, who's had no interactions that I'm aware of at a high level with Chinese officials or shown or demonstrated a great depth of knowledge. I think the president was right to put people in those roles that had a large understanding, had relationships, and understood what they were going into. Again, Donald Trump was the first person in decades to stand up and fight back and hold a hard line against China. We have to make sure that that continues. Donald Trump has been right in that. We are at a great crossroads in how we deal with China, and it needs to be very, very aggressive in making sure that America continues to be the leader in this coming century.